Minicamp is underway for your Seattle Seahawks, and on this edition of Seahawks Today, we will break down the latest takeaways from day one and let you hear from some of your favorite Seahawks coming up on today's show. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. Let's start with Laken Tomlinson, the Seahawks offensive guard, one of the newest members of this squad, comes over from the New York Jets and getting his first looks at his fellow teammates right there. The hog mollies, if you will. And Tomlinson, very impressed with what he's seen from Charles Cross and second-year player Oluwatimi so far. And based on what we're hearing from Laken Tomlinson, the big thing that he pointed out to was both of these guys are really putting in the work at this point to be great. Not only just on the football field, but also behind the scenes as well, that these guys are doing the little things right at this point in time. Let's let you see what Laken Tomlinson had to say specifically about these two guys from OTAs and from minicamp so far to this point. Listen to this. Those are two guys who have been here every day. They're busting their tails, extremely respectful guys. They come up to me and ask questions. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? Even just doing the little stuff like staying after practices and going through things that can happen during the middle of the game, certain scenarios. It has been great working with them. I truly appreciate that from both those guys. Building that chemistry, especially this time of year, it is extremely important for the offensive linemen. And you can see those three, Tomlinson, Cross, and Oluwatimi, are expected to hold down the left side of the offensive line, as a Tomlinson, the odds-on favorite to get one of those starting guard spots, specifically the left guard position. Christian Haynes, the favorite to be your starting right guard in a competition there with Anthony Bradford and company. Then Abraham Lucas, who's not around there at minicamp right now, still recovering from off-season knee surgery, but a good step in the right direction of this group getting acclimated and getting things going here at minicamp at this point, and very impressive with each other. Let's stay on offense now for takeaway number 2. We'll turn our attention to DK Metcalf, as the Seahawks wide receiver made it very known that he is bought in to what Ryan Grubb is selling with his new offensive scheme in Seattle. And we know this offense is going to look way different than any offense we've seen prior with this Seattle Seahawks team, as you'll see this air raid scheme should be very pass-happy, if you will. And DK Metcalf, here's what he had to say as far as what has stood out to him so far to this point in the weeks that he's been involved with the install of this offense, which is at about 50% installed at this point. I like Coach Grubb, his motivation, and how he's strictly the same person. He's always motivating us to be our best selves. So that's one thing I like about him. I think this offense has a lot of potential to be great, especially with the weapons that we have. So DK Metcalf buying into what Ryan Grubb is selling to this point. And I think a big point of that, too, is the quarterback play. Is this offense is very QB-friendly, and that's only going to elevate the play of wideouts like DK Metcalf. We've heard a lot about JSN of being the go-to guy for Geno Smith the last couple of weeks. But you look at these statistics from DK Metcalf, last year with over 1,100 yards. If he stays healthy and if Geno stays healthy, the way this offense projects this outlook, I think Geno could be looking at the best season of his career to this point. You look at this offensive scheme, a mix of tempo, a lot of screen passes, mixed gap scheme and zone blocking, horizontal and vertical stretches. The vertical stretches is going to be right up DK Metcalf's alley, and you're going to spread the field with the run. So watch out for a big year from DK Metcalf to really thrive in what Ryan Grubb wants to do offensively. What do you guys think? Will DK Metcalf have a big season in Seattle in 2024? Let us know what you think. Y for yes, N for no. It's our pinned comment today. Weigh in if this is a big year for DK or not. Your offseason headquarters for all things Seattle Seahawks is Seattle Seahawks Today, powered by Chat Sports. We're bringing you daily news and rumors, live shows, not just once but twice a week here on the channel, breaking news, interactive mailbags, and more. Never miss a moment. Lock us in. The largest Seattle Seahawks YouTube channel in the world is Seahawks Today. Join the family now, youtube.com/SeahawksTV, and subscribe now for free. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball now as we turn our attention to Boye Mafe. Boye Mafe speaking to the media on Tuesday. And for Boye, he quoted a legend in the great Kobe Bryant and said the job's not finished. And although Boye Mafe led the Seahawks in sacks in 2023 and set the franchise record for most consecutive games with the sack with 7 in a row, Boye is hungry for more in 2024. He's putting himself out there that he wants to take another step up to his play to become that elite defensive player that he wants to be. Here's what Boye had to say on year 3 in Seattle. It's one thing to say it's a good year or whatever. To me, I kind of took it as a stepping stone. There's a lot to learn from last year. There's a lot to improve on from last year, and the job's not finished. You know, we still got work to do. There's still things I got to work on in my game and in learning the game, becoming a better player for me. It's just taking that next step. And when I look at Boye Mafe, I'm pretty confident that he's going to take that next step forward. All of the stars are aligning, if you will. We've talked a lot about how well Mike Macdonald has done when it comes to getting the most out of his pass rushers. And with Boye Mafe coming off a season with 9 sacks, 15 QB hits in this system, that's going to be asked a lot of him. And think about this, with the other investments that they've made, with bringing in Byron Murphy, with paying Leonard Williams that money, that's going to make life easier for everybody, with Boye Mafe included. I don't think there's any reason to think that Boye Mafe won't have an outstanding season here in 2024. Next up, let's talk about the head coach, Mike Macdonald, entering his first year in Seattle. And he did an extensive interview. He and John Schneider both with Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated for the Monday Morning QB. And if you haven't seen this yet, you need to check this out. This came out on Monday. And one of the big takeaways was about how Mike Macdonald is doing things in Seattle, that they want to push the envelope, that Macdonald is coming in with a very fearless approach to what the Seahawks want to do and how they want to take things to the next level, building upon the foundation established from the Pete Carroll era in Seattle. Albert Breer had this to say. Let's start with Breer, and then we'll get into what Macdonald said here in just a moment. Breer said the following: the key, as Macdonald described in his interview, and over the phone 5 months later, very much reflected his Baltimore background in that he'd be looking for a varied schemes that keep pushing the envelope on what could be accomplished. But everyone agreed that finding those fits would be a lot easier after they honed in on the types of people they wanted. They found the people that they wanted. They were on the same page when it came to personnel decisions. One of the things that I noticed in this article was that Schneider and Macdonald share the same philosophy of building through the draft and getting young talent that direction to be the core of this team. That's going to be their focus, and we saw that in this year's draft with the selection of Byron Murphy and Christian Haynes, 2 guys that are expected to be starters right away. Then we heard from Mike Macdonald directly in this interview with the Monday Morning QB. He said this: scheme-wise, Albert, looking back through the whole process to look at anything as initial roadblocks is essentially narrow vision, man. We can get through all that stuff. In my opinion, I was looking at it as these are the guys I want to work with. And these are the guys that fit our team because those are the guys that are going to project what's important to the coaches and how they're going to coach those guys. So what is Mike Macdonald walking into his first season in Seattle, coming off back-to-back 9-8 seasons? The Seahawks underachieved last year. Part of the reason why the Seahawks moved on from Pete Carroll and brought in Macdonald was to take this team to the next level on that front, to not settle for 9-8 campaigns. Building off the culture established from Pete Carroll. I know that there was a decent amount of folks happy to see Pete Carroll move on, but there was a lot of good things that Pete Carroll did in his time in Seattle. Not just a Super Bowl championship, but really the history of the Seattle Seahawks, of their winning ways and what was established of expectation all started with Pete Carroll, right? And building off that, the positive reinforcement that Pete did, Mike Macdonald's looking to continue on that path of that foundation, the bricks that were laid there from Pete Carroll on that front. All sorts of schematic changes, both on offense and on defense for the Seattle Seahawks. We know about this air raid scheme that Ryan Grubb is bringing in offensively, and that's certainly going to change things. But defensively, the mixing and the matching, the 3-4 defense, the 4-3, really just keeping offenses on their toes of what Mike Macdonald's going to bring to the table, embracing that foundation that's already been set, taking things to that next level, and the energy. We saw that Pete Carroll, even as the oldest head coach in the National Football League, still brought energy to the table. And Mike Macdonald is keeping that energy in the building the same. They want this to be a lively place. Macdonald's still going to be a player's coach for this team and a guy that players can trust and lean on that front. What's your confidence level in first-year head coach Mike Macdonald? Weigh in the comment section. Scale it for me 1 through 10. I'm pretty high. I'm pretty excited. Mike Macdonald, I'm going with an 8 myself. Give me your confidence level in the comment section below. Last but not least, we received some news that the Seahawks will have a joint practice with the Tennessee Titans coming up in August. And this coming from Seahawks PR just a few moments ago before we taped this, folks. This year's scrimmage with Tennessee will be Seattle's first with another team since facing the Houston Oilers for 3 consecutive preseason scrimmages from 1986 to 1988, with the last taking place at the Tacoma Dome. So very fitting that the first one back is against that same franchise this many years later. And this is going to be a new thing for the Seattle Seahawks, as Pete Carroll never really wanted that route. He always felt it was better to keep things in-house, but Mike Macdonald going this route. We didn't hear Macdonald or Schneider comment directly on this, but we did hear from Tennessee head coach Brian Callahan about why they agreed to do these joint practices with Seattle. And this is what Callahan had to say. I'm excited about it. It's great work. We'll get 2 days of good work against Seattle prior to our game that Wednesday and Thursday, since we play Saturday. I'm looking forward to it. We've had conversations with the other teams we play to see if we could make that work, but logistically it gets hard. But I'd do 2 or 3 weeks of it if we could. It really changes up training camp, gets you to evaluate your guys against other people and their scheme. I love the joint practices, and I think our guys do too. So here's what the joint practices are going to look like. The Titans are hosting them. It will take place in Nashville over a 2-day stretch on August 14th and 15th, and then you'll have the preseason game to follow a couple days later on August 17th. Fan attendance still to be determined on this, so might want to hold off on purchasing the plane tickets to Nashville just yet. And the joint practices are going to include 11-on-11s, 7-on-7s, and 1-on-1 drills that will take place in that 2-day portion. So, with that said, our minicamp takeaways so far from day one. What's your biggest takeaway? Weigh in the comment section and let us know what you think. Appreciate you joining us here on Seahawks Today. Follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, @TylerJonesLive, for continuing Seahawks coverage, and we'll see you next time.